Morning everyone, and welcome to another transfer special of On the Whistle. No sooner was Sunderland's 8th summer signing, Robin Roos, through the door, a deal has been agreed to make Marc Guiu Sunderland's 9th summer signing. So at the time of recording, this hasn't been confirmed, but we understand that a season-long loan deal has been agreed with Chelsea. And so as ever, we're going to get a little bit into talking about this transfer, what Guiu might bring to the team, what it means for the rest of the squad. This is by far the hardest one to do, and that is revealing itself, because Marc Guiu has not a great amount of senior experience. He has a huge reputation in youth football, both through the Spanish youth teams, where he's played regularly, and also for Barcelona B, which of course competes in competitive football in the Spanish lower leagues. But his senior experience is really limited, and that makes it kind of really hard to make judgment on how he's going to adjust to Premier League level. Certainly statistically, it's a lot harder for me to give you kind of an insight into his key strengths, maybe some of his weaknesses. But because it's how I roll, I spent all Thursday night watching a lot of clips of this guy in action on Y-Scout, both from the really early stage of his career for Barcelona B, right through to the recent kind of stage of his career at Chelsea now. Guiu is someone who has played quite a lot of football, though not at senior levels. So he came up through the Barcelona Academy at La Masia, broke through into the first team under Xavi, and then Chelsea basically were very aggressive in signing him from Barcelona. I believe they triggered a release clause to bring him in. Not necessarily one, I don't think, where Barcelona were looking to offload him, just some really opportunistic recruitment from Chelsea. Last season, he did get some minutes for Chelsea. I believe he had a relatively serious injury, which kept him sidelined at one stage. But he did get quite a lot of minutes, primarily in the Conference League, where he actually scored quite a few goals. Got a little bit of football at the Club World Cup this summer as well. He did feature in the squad and got some minutes off the bench in that team that obviously went on to win the Club World Cup. So he's a player with not a massive amount of senior football under his belt, but a huge reputation in youth football. I think that would be the easiest way to describe it. And so this is a little bit of a step into the unknown for Sunderland. Obviously, they will have their very advanced sort of scouting networks, their very advanced analytics, so they'll know a lot about Guiu. But the reality is obviously with someone who's played so little Premier League football, you can't be 100% sure how they're going to adjust. Now, what's interesting about Guiu is what we can learn from the research that I've done about his career so far, and certainly something that's backed up by watching clips of him in action, is that he had a reputation coming through Barcelona's youth academy as a little bit of a exception to the norm. And obviously, particularly if you think about when Guiu was coming through La Masia in the sort of Guardiola era and Luis Enrique after that, the kind of style that Barcelona were playing, they weren't producing many traditional number 9s. And I think that was where Guiu's initial reputation came through, because he was someone who was seen as a little bit of a throwback, a really different kind of player, an old school number 9. And his coaches talked about a good finisher, but someone who very much came alive in the box, and maybe not someone who was contributing a huge amount to kind of link up play in the general build-up, which is obviously something that kind of became synonymous with Barcelona when they were playing with a false number 9 for so many years. Really strong goal scoring record in youth football, and what's very clear is he's not just a good finisher, but he's really good in the air. I think that's something that's been a theme of his career so far, both in youth football and the early stages of senior football, is that he's a good header of the ball. He can score goals from inside the box, both with his feet and in the air. I think one of the things that is really noticeable from watching him in action is he's physically really impressive. Loves to disrupt the back four, loves to press the opposition goalkeeper. Actually got some goals for Chelsea in the Conference League from pouncing on sort of slightly underhit back passes, really good awareness, likes to hassle, likes to press, likes to harry. And one of the things I noticed as well is, though it didn't appear to be something that maybe was a massive part of his game when he first broke through at Barcelona, it looks to me like his link-up play has developed quite a lot in recent times, certainly in his recent appearances for Chelsea, quite often dropping deep to sort of play those first-time passes out wide or back into midfield. So definitely someone who's going to offer something a little bit different. Could be a bit of an outlet, offer some hold-up play. But definitely I think one of the key strengths he's going to bring is his physicality and his aggression and his pressing. Clearly someone who's going to try and disrupt the opposition and sort of lead someone's press when he plays. Looking at his heat maps and also watching his clips in terms of the positions he likes to take up, definitely brings something different to Wilson Eastoe and Eliza Mienda. really stays in central areas. He's not somebody who drifts out wide. You know, if you think about a lot of where Isidore really thrives, slightly pulling out into wider positions and then making those runs off the shoulder, you know, when those passes come through. You know, something that Guiu can do, but definitely not his game. Likes to stay really, really central. And again, you know, maybe not as much of a dribbler as Eliza Meander, although we have seen that it's something he can do. But someone who likes to occupy central areas, disrupt the opposition, build up, as I said, and be ready in those central areas to take those chances when they come. So I think it's a signing that makes sense in terms of his profile of his player, because he offers something completely different to what Meander and Isidore tend to bring. Obviously, this is a little bit of a step into the unknown because it's really difficult to make a prediction at this point in terms of how quickly he's going to acclimatise to play more regularly in the Premier League. I think it tells us a lot that Chelsea are loaning him to Sunderland and that they haven't allowed or haven't considered an option to buy or an obligation to buy clause in this deal. I think it's telling that they're loaning him out to a Premier League club for a season. They still very much see this guy as someone who can be a part of their team in the long run, someone that Enzo Maresca clearly rates really highly, and just doesn't quite see him getting past his centre forward options at this stage. So I think that's something that we can take some positivity from and some excitement from, because you know, this seems to be a loan move that Chelsea are making because they believe he could be ready for their team in the coming years. So I think it's clear that Sunderland are getting a really big prospect. One of the things that really tick boxes for me reading about his career so far, something that tallies when you watch him in action, is so much praise for his attitude from his former coaches. And one of the things that really stood out, known for having a pretty relentless work ethic both on and off the pitch, and I think that's something that will really attract Régis Lebris. I think that'll be one of the reasons why he was keen to do this deal. Sunderland centre forward is going to get through a lot of running this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and that's definitely something that Guiu brings really naturally. I think the fact that they've made this signing as their kind of third striking option, I think it tells you a little bit about the trust and the faith that they have in both Isidore and particularly Meander. Isidore is someone who's shown, you know, he's got pace that is going to easily translate to this level, and he's shown himself to be a really good finisher at times, and Sunderland will back that. I don't think there's any doubt that they massively back Eliza Meander in the long run. I think they feel they have a huge talent on their hands here. How quickly will he adjust and acclimatise to the Premier League? Obviously, we don't know that, but I think it's really clear to me that they see him having a big part in this season, and they're a player who they want to keep giving minutes to, because I think they see a huge potential there, and a player who could be a top sort of European striker, hopefully for Sunderland, you know, or potentially draw an interest in massive bids from European clubs. So I think that's part of the reason why Sunderland are going down this route. I think there is a belief that they have strikers in the building who can impact a Premier League level, but clearly they need more depth and they need more support. And as I say, I think watching Guiu, it's clear that something he'll bring something a little bit more different, maybe a bit more of a traditional number 9, if you like, than maybe the options that we currently have. So going to be fascinating to see how he goes. As I say, there are some kind of signings that I've sat and talked about on these videos this summer, and you can almost see immediately, and you have the stats to back it up in terms of where they're going to drop into the team, what they're going to bring. Much harder to do that for the reasons I've outlined with Guiu, but you know, a player with a formidable reputation, and as I say, you know, someone who's drawn a lot of praise for his work ethic and his attitude so far in his career, and hopefully that'll stand him in good stead at Sunderland. So let's see how he goes. Signing number 9 sounds incredible to sound. Is imminent, and we expect there to be a lot more to come as well. Really exciting times. So of course, Real Betis tomorrow, and it's the return of football to the Stadium of Light. And I was really lucky yesterday afternoon to go down and see Jimmy Montgomery, see the lettering on his new stand yesterday for the first time. Really emotional moment for Jimmy and his family, and a really fitting tribute to a club legend, and it looks fantastic, the lettering. I think fans are going to love it when they see it. While I was down there, I was really lucky to get a bit of an insight and have a look at some of the other changes that are going on at the Stadium of Light this summer. So there's been a big wave of investment, obviously on the pitch, but off it as well. You know, there's been a real attempt to freshen things up at the Stadium of Light, which and it looks great. It's been the concourses feel a lot more like Sunderland's home ground, if you like, as they should do. Probably overdue, but they've done a really smart job with it. Everything's painted red, gives it a much warmer kind of feel. There's loads of murals, really nicely done, to loads of club legends, everyone from Rach Carter through to Tommy Sorensen and Quinn and Phillips. There's lyrics to Sunderland chants all over the walls. I know there's been some work done to kind of upgrade the catering facilities as well, hopefully kind of better offering and a quicker offering as well. Obviously, everybody's aware that there's been a huge amount of investment into the hospitality services as well for the new season, but it's not just the kind of premium end, if you like, that the money's gone into. Or I think the whole stadium's been given a real refresh, and it's really nice to see. And I think it's just a bit of a reminder that Sunderland are trying to have a bit of a go at this year and use this windfall, if you like, and this opportunity that's come from that promotion to kind of future-proof the club for the next few years. And I think everybody's probably felt that at times in recent years the stadium is fantastic as it is, has felt a little bit tired, and there's been a real modernisation going on now. A lot of money's gone into it. And I think when you come through the doors at the stadium like tomorrow, it's really going to feel like it's kind of a new chapter for the club. And that's even before we see Granit Xhaka wearing a Sunderland shirt for the first time, which hopefully will be tomorrow. So I'm guessing I'm going to be back later this weekend with a kind of on the whistle reflecting on the Real Betis game. So keep an eye out for that. I'll also be on social media asking for your questions for that. We'll do a Q&A for that one sometime on Saturday. So keep an eye out for that kind of post-match. Of course, I may be back at some point if Sunderland get a deal agreed for another player. I guess we'll wait and see. You can't rule it out at the moment. But as ever, thanks so much for watching. I know this one was a little bit different because I don't have the depth of kind of background on Guiu as I have on some of the other players. But hopefully it's given you a little bit of an insight into why I think Sunderland are doing this deal and what he could bring to the club. So as ever, thanks so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you again very soon.